So greetings everyone. How is everyone this evening? Okay, so for those who don't know, my name is Nikichi Taifa, and I convene the Justice Roundtable, which is a coalition of over 100 organizations working in Washington, D.C. on federal criminal justice policy reform issues. I'm also the president and CEO of the Taifa Group, LLC, which is a social justice firm. And Justice Roundtable, for those who don't know, actually started in 2002. And it was the organization that was one of the primary catalysts behind what ultimately became known as the Second Chance Reentry Bill of 2008. It was a coalition that was largely part of the catalyst between what became known as the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010, which reduced the disparity between crack and powder cocaine, worked closely with the Sentencing Commission to ensure that there was retroactivity of the crack guidelines, and really helped to inspire, I will say, the Supreme Court to do some of the correct things it was doing during those times with Booker and Blakely and all of that. And during the last term of the Obama administration, the Justice Roundtable worked very closely to ensure the release of really over 1,700 persons from unjust imprisonment. And just recently, it was the Justice Roundtable that worked very hard to ensure that there were strong sentencing provisions that were part of what became known as the First Step Act. So we've been around a long time, even though you might not have ever heard of us, but the work has been there, and many of the people who are out here in the audience have been part of helping to make that happen. So we primarily have been working on the federal system. But you know, when you deal with DC, and I happen to be a lifelong resident of the District of Columbia, a native Washingtonian, when we talk about DC, we're talking about the federal system, okay? You all know what I'm talking about. Spread out all throughout the country, residents of Washington, D.C. are enmeshed within the federal system. But we want to talk today as part of the next to last day of what has become known as Second Chance Act, Second Chance, everything's the same, Second Chance Month, we're going to be talking about how we can have a fresh new start in D.C. Are y'all ready for this? Yeah. Well, to kick us off, we're going to have a little testimony and just a little sharing by a brother that I just met not too long ago, who was brought up here from Florida, whose name is Tavarius Two Scoop Johnson. Tavarius Two Scoop Johnson. These lights in my eyes. Where are you? Oh, you're right here. Come on up here. Brother, tell us about yourself and your testimony, and share with us the special thing that you're going to share with us. Come on up here. Let's give it up for Tavarius Two Scoop Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be here in Washington, D.C. This is actually my first trip to Washington, D.C., and it's a very beautiful place, and I definitely look forward to coming back up here again. My name is Tavarius Johnson, and my story is as such. At 18 years old, I was incarcerated and sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. My background is, I wasn't a bad kid. I was a kid raised in a family. My father was a pastor, brought us up in the church. I finished high school. I played in the orchestra for 10 years while I was in school. So I managed to do well in school, but the environments that I lived in were pretty bad off, and I believe at some point I just got influenced and just made a wrong turn. And that turn led me to my first offense for 25 years in federal prison. While I was in prison, in the beginning of my sentence, not much was going on. I was pretty much just there existing and living with bitterness and resentment until I met Warden Holder. When he came to Coleman Correctional Facility, he came there and let his presence be felt immediately by establishing various programs that allow guys like myself to to be active and further our education and acquire resources and tools that will allow us to make a successful reintegration process back out in society. So I took advantage of those programs, and I found myself interacting with young youth, men and women that he would allow to come into prison so that we can impart knowledge to them and share with them our stories in hopes to try to detour them from making bad decisions that could lead them in a place where we were. And that gave me a sense of purpose to do that all those years. And I began to write music while I was there. And while I was there, I wrote over 100+ songs. And this song that I'm going to do for you today is actually the first song that I've had produced since I've been out, which is like 2 years now. And the song is titled "Look What Life Has Done." I sent it to Warden Holder one night. I asked him to listen to it and give me his opinion, and he called me back immediately. He was like, "Listen, I love the song, and I want to make this song the theme song of my book." And I'm honored to have him do that. And we just actually came back from Trinidad over the last week, over there going into the prisons and talking to young men and women, and making a push to bring awareness for social justice and prison reform abroad. So I'm going to do this song for you guys. It's titled "Look What Life Has Done." I hope you guys like it. Also, I have CDs in the back if you guys are interested in getting the CD. All the money that I'm raising is going to be used to pay for my future productions with my music and possibly shoot a video for this song that you're going to hear. Thank you so much.
Staring in the mirror, giving counsel to myself. This is not who I remember. Seems I hardly know this man. Making faces, trying to figure the location of a dream that I lost somewhere behind, in which I could be defined. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember who you were. Look what life has done to me. A country built by the hands of humans, lesser than a man, and for democracy it stands. Yeah. In times of natural catastrophe, government aid eludes the people. Tell me who is this I see? He seems to think that he's my equal. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember who you were. Look what life has done to me. To prosecute them, administrate laws and apply them until they are in violation. Yeah. Not enough money for education, only enough to wage a war based on false information. We are in a situation. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember. Look what life has done to me. I lost your loved ones, and it's taken away from me pieces of my happiness. It takes strength for me to smile. Children dying from starvation in the country that feeds the world. Global warming and pollution. Execution. Look what life has done to me. Try to remember who you were. Look what life has done to me. conversation, no time for hesitation. I am certain that who I see staring at me in the mirror is not the man I choose to be. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Look what life has done to me. Look what life has done to me. Look what life has done to me. Look what life has done to me.
Thank you, everyone. Taborius Johnson.
Glorious Two Scoop Johnson, let's give it up for him again. Thank you, Academy. I love it. Thank you. Look at all these great things that come out of the system, the prison, I mean, whatever. Thank you.
Come on.
Wow. So actually, let me just tell you how we're going to proceed, and that really was kind of like a good intro to our special feature, our special remarks that we're going to have from Mr. Carlisle Holder. We're going to also then go into a panel discussion with some of the foremost advocates in the city on these issues. And we're going to conclude with a performance by none other than our brother, Lamont Carey, founder of La Carey Enterprises, LLC, contact business, and more. So, first I just want to say, you know, things just don't happen by serendipity, I guess you could say, but sometimes I think that they do. Because when I first met Carlisle Holder, I didn't know that he was going to be sitting here in front of us today. I didn't know that he was going to win a contract to open up a halfway house here in Washington, D.C. I didn't know any of those things. I just knew that he was awarded, and I said, golly, I didn't know any wardens. At least not any wardens that I really, talked to. But I met him at a number of different conferences that were part of the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice. And I said, wow, this is a pretty important, wow, kind of like it was when I met Ron Hampton, who was a police officer, one of the first police officers I met way back in the day. And I said, wow, there's some really good police officers out here, you know what I'm saying? So, Carlisle Holder is a proven strategic and innovative executive leader with a career spanning 37 years in criminal justice. Over his 27 years plus a distinguished service with the United States Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Prisons, he served 23 of those years as supervisor, manager, and executive. He was a chief executive officer, aka warden, for 12 years. He attained the rank of senior executive service, the highest level one can achieve through federal civil service. He was appointed to the board of directors of Prison Rehabilitative Industries and Diversified Enterprises, and currently serves as its vice chair. He also serves on the Leadership Council of the National Small Business Association. He's a life member and inductee on the National Association of Blacks for Criminal Justice, Wall of Fame, and served as its 12th national president. An entrepreneur at heart, he has founded several companies and currently serves as chairman, president, and CEO of the umbrella company Correctional Management and Communications Group, LLC, where he provides overall leadership and guidance. And he also serves as president of CORE DC. His recently released book, which is there in the back, hopefully you'll pick up a copy, Can Anything Good Come Out of Prison? The Case for Prison Restructuring and Reintegration is right there. And, he's married. His wife's name is Josephine, which happens to be my middle name that I was named at birth, because Josephine is my mother's name. So, we got some kind of vibe going on here. So I'm really pleased at this time to bring forth Carlisle Holder, who's going to share some special remarks with us. Come on up here, Carlisle.
The true joy in life is to be used for a purpose, recognized by yourself to be a special one, to be in the force of nature instead of feverish little plots of alien agreements complaining about the world did not do enough to making you happy. You see, I'm of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community. For as long as I should live, it's my privilege to do for it what I can. You see, I want to be thoroughly used up when I die. For the harder I work, the longer I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life hasn't been a brief candle for me, but sort of a splendid torch. These are words from George Bernard Shaw. Good evening, Washington, D.C.
Good evening.
I want to give thanks and appreciation to my beloved sister and friend, Sister Kichi, and the Roundtable and its partners for the opportunity to just come and share with you. And I know that I'm asked this question, you know, how come a warden is up here advocating for the least of those of us? And I am happy to report that I want to do that, and I plan to do that. You know, we live in a world that incarcerates 11 million people. America has 2.2 million of those individuals, and although it only represents about 5% of the world population, it incarcerates 25% of it. And I'm often reminded by a quote from one of my favorite men, Nelson Mandela, that states to know a nation. It said that no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails or prisons. A nation shouldn't be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but how it treats its lowest. And if we was to judge America based on the number of people that it incarcerates today, it would probably have a failing grade. A little bit of background, you know, why I decided to write a book. I actually began my career in corrections at a very, very tender age. I just fell in by pure accident. I actually got out of the Marines, and although my dad, I'm originally from Trinidad, so in case you want to find out what that funny accent is about, I actually came here to go to college. My dad was a professor at Columbia University, and I decided I wanted to go in the Marines at 17, and obviously he didn't approve of that. I went anyway, and got out of the Marines and started my career in the prison services in Lompoc, California. In 1980, there was 30,000 federal prisons across the entire country at that time. Back then, you know, the guys in the penitentiary were, you know, you actually work your way to the penitentiary. They'd see a lot of young guys in the penitentiary, and I remember the guys used to ask me, what are you doing here? You need to be in school somewhere. And then to see the prison system grow at the rate, and one of the things that I believe that helped me, back then too, they always used to use the bigger guys to go do the takedowns, and I was a skinny little, not like today, you know, age has a way of doing some things to us. So I was never called upon to go, you know, take the guys down. You know, back then wasn't that sophisticated, didn't have a whole lot of equipment. They just get all the big guys, and you line up and you go take the guys down. I think for some reason that may have made me the person that I became. And I'm just an ordinary guy, but I recognize that there's value in every person. And when I had the opportunity to become a warden, I realized that if we allow these men to keep their dignity and their manhood, we can see the transformation that I've seen before my own eyes. And that's why I'm traveling with Tavares, because what most people, he went to prison at the age of 18 for doing a carjacking with a fake gun that nobody got hurt, and got 25 years. And for him to be still, you know, with the positive spirit, and most of the guys, I also have a couple guys that was with me at Coleman, Kevin Petty, he was the president of my NAACP chapter, and Brother Robinson was my guru of Fathers Behind Bars, and those guys was, I created the environment where they can reach their full potential. And I see when you do that, what happens, because I tell folks, you know, good people go to prison and good people can come out of prison. You have to create that environment, and what the media, we have allowed the media to do is create this negative feeling or this contempt for people that have either been involved in the justice system, and as a result, we have this revolving door, because when they do leave the walls of our prisons, they can't find the right connections. So I decided that I'm going to be their voice, and I'm gonna go on every opportunity I get. I'm gonna speak on their behalf, because most of the times they're not going to have the opportunity for real reform. I don't think there's anyone in my capacity have worked inside and now advocating. And I know some folks say, well, why would you take that as your mantra? Because I know that God loves all of us, right? And we should be afforded the opportunity of a second chance. And by no means am I saying that when you break the law, you shouldn't deal with the consequences of your actions. But we know through the 80s and the 90s what happened. It wasn't really about rehabilitation, or it was about punishment. And you know, I wrote about how someone go to jail for life for drugs and a person go to jail for life for murder. How do we as a society come to terms with that? So basically what my book is, Can Any Good Thing Come Out of Prison, talks about that prison needs to be restructured. And I don't want to bore you because I don't want to give you too much in the book. I really want you to get the book, but I'm going to give you 4 things that I think you're going to learn from the book. I call it the 4 R's, right? I think that prisons have to be restructured. The way that we train, the way that prison operates today has to be restructured so it serves the people. Second, we have to make sure that the reintegration is connected to the community. You see, the prisons are just a microcosm of the community that they live in. It's no different. They're just behind the walls. So we have to engage. You know, one of the things you will see, I didn't allow no community organization to interact with my inmates unless they came in first to deal with them while they're behind the bars. So they get to know these guys. So when there was a seamless transition, I know for the district that's a little bit difficult because you have guys, you know, all over, but we were able to do so. We created community ambassadors for jobs, religious services, a whole variety of things when we really connected them to their families. You know, I used to tell the guys that instead of making a phone call to talk nonsense with your girlfriend, why don't you call your kid and find out how their day was at school, did they have a good day? You can still be a parent or you're behind bars. So all these things, because the guys was under the impression that the warden's pay is based on how much they spend in the commissary or how much they get on the phone calls. And I used to remind them that wasn't the case. In fact, I wanted them to, I started a savings program way back. Then I convinced them that, hey, if you can save that money and you leave here, I'll give you at least a better chance when you leave, because when, you know, typically you leave with $50 unless you're smart and you save your money. And we had hundreds of guys decided they was going to do that, and then when they get to the bank, the corporate security has shut it down because they see all these accounts was opening up from a prison, and we never really get that to take place. But those are some of the barriers that those guys experience that nobody talks about. So after we talk about the reintegration, I like to talk about restoration, right? Because we have to, after people have paid their debt to society, we have to give them a chance, a true chance, not just a chance because, you know, they go out and they can't connect, they're not being connected to a job. And I believe, as I have the opportunity to speak, I believe that we have to find employment opportunities for return. I think that's the most critical aspect beside housing. But if you don't have a job, you can't have housing, because how are you going to pay the rent? So and we know through all our urban areas that the unemployment rate for the incarcerated is much higher. In fact, when Governor Scott appointed me to that board, I had a conversation with him, and I asked him, you know, what he was going to do about the high unemployment rate, because if this in the state, in my home state, the unemployment rate is about 3.4%. I said, then the only folks that are unemployed in the state is unincarcerated individuals, and what we're going to do. Because in any typical state, you know, the returning citizens go to very urban areas. So, you know, I know D.C. is one urban area in itself, but in my state, you know, they'll go to Miami, Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, and when you go there, there's no jobs. So we have to find ways to bring jobs into those communities, and whether, you know, I don't get into the politics, as long as it is the right thing for returning citizens. I'm glad that the president is going to make the next he's called the second step act is going to be about employment for returning citizens. So I plan to support that initiative, because I believe that can turn the tides on recidivism rate, and make sure that they have the skill sets, and not just, you know, typical. You know, what I tell the folks that, you know, we have to use prisoners I used to say it was a university for me. I don't call my guys I call them graduates. I see it as a school where we have to provide them with real skills, not just the same old typical things that you do, that when they come to their hometown, they don't have any jobs. You know, I remember we doing the electrical and hybrid vehicle, how to service electrical and hybrid vehicles, and those kind of getting them involved in technology. I was the first federal prison to have email, because I know when you come out, if you don't know how to work an email, you probably can't survive. And then the final thing, the final R's I like to talk, because nobody talks about it, is return on investment. You know, it's amazing that we spend $80 billion incarcerating folks, and nobody ever asks, what is the return on investment? We send our kids, right, to school, right? We pay for their education. What we expect, we hold the principal accountable, right, for how our kids do in school. Yet we have a prison system that's not being held accountable for the people that comes in behind the bar. So my last chapter in the book is an accountability model, where we start measuring the success is based on the return on investment. And I know most of my counterparts is not going to like that, because there's a difference between responsibility and accountability. And I think we need to hold prison systems, or jails and prisons, accountable for when these individuals come to them, that they leave better, they don't leave worse. And so I'm going to push that model, and I think, you know, we live in a country that understand return on investment. Everybody understands that, and we need to start finding out, why are we putting money that flushes, that, you know, we can take that money and realign it. In most states, that's normally the biggest item on it. They pay more for corrections than they pay for education. In my state, it's about $7,000 to educate a child. It's $29,000 to keep someone locked up. It just don't make sense to me. So we need to start pushing that button about return on investment, and hold politicians to answer that question, and make sure that we do everything within our power to make sure that they have the right skills, so when they leave, and I know people say, well, you know, are you going to let everybody out? You know, in reality, 95% of those that go to prison gets released. We have a very small percentage of those that goes out that doesn't come. And I'm so excited as I transition and leave and take my seat about the discussion about a fresh new start in Washington, D.C., because it's a travesty that we're not providing the returning citizens in D.C. what they need so they can have a successful reentry. Even given the fact that they come from so many places across the country, I think we need to make sure that there need to be a coherent, cohesive reentry policy that includes transitional into decent halfway house that provide them with true opportunities, and then into transitional housing, so that, you know, as the dynamics change in Washington, D.C., as I see happening in a lot of our urban areas, the cost of housing is becoming unaffordable for someone that's coming out of prison. So we got to find ways to fix that problem. So I'm going to close by just want you all to encourage you all to continue to do the work. The work, you know, they said the work is plentiful, but the laborers are few, and I can appreciate what my sister here is doing and all the other folks in the audience. I know some of them I've been working real close with. So I appreciate the opportunity to just share these remarks and continue to struggle. Thank you.
Okay, great. I mean, we have a very illustrious panel. I'm just going to say their name and their affiliation and let them take just a few minutes to talk about themselves and about the work that you do and what you feel about just what a fresh start in DC should be about or means to you. So I'm just going to say who you are, and then we'll start off, and it doesn't have to be in any particular order, but Reverend Raylan Hagler has been in D.C. for a long time, Ward 4, where I live, where I grew up, actually, pastor of Plymouth United Church of Christ. Thank you so much for joining us. Paula Thompson, the Executive Director of Voices for a Second Chance and RAN DC, DC Reentry Action Network. I cannot believe that I just met you at a conference we were recently at, Legal Action Center. Where were we? In New York at Columbia University. I cannot believe it. She stood up in the audience and raised all this stuff. I said, oh my gosh, she's right here in DC. And, you know, I was just very impressed, and I knew I really wanted to have you. So Paula, thank you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. My brother, Courtney Stewart, we're talking about the CEO, the Executive Director of the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens. He pulled my coattails in. Keith, you always leave off that national. I will never do that again. You know, Courtney has just been doing some phenomenal things. I mean, he's just kind of mushroom, just like overnight this thing. So we're really looking forward to hearing you share. Brother Salim Adolfo, I remember when you came to DC. Oh my God, now he got gray hair. Oh God, it wasn't that long ago, really. Salim Adolfo is the commissioner, ANC commissioner, 8C07. You're going to be hearing, you think you're already hearing a whole lot of things about Salim Adolfo? You just wait. You know, Ward 8, glad that you are here. Gordon Jackson. Gordon Jackson is the Vice President of CORE DC. He is, I would consider you like the right-hand person to call out Holder. Am I kind of right with respect to that? You laid out the red carpet. I went up there to New York to see the facility that that CORE facilitates up there, and I'm just totally impressed and really looking forward to seeing that operation here in DC as well. Gordon Jackson. And last but absolutely not least, Al-Malik Farrakhan. We're talking about the founder, the inspiration, the everything behind Ceasefire, Don't Smoke the Brothers and Sisters. And he pulled my coattail because on the flyer I just said Ceasefire, Don't Smoke the Brothers. I just remember back in the day, because I would, back in the day. And he said, oh, Nikita, you got to make sure you put the sisters in there. So I'm going to make sure that we definitely have the sisters in. I'm really glad that you're on this panel too, because you know you were out there long before anybody was out here in DC basically talking about these issues. So I want you to share part of your story when we go along and talk. So I don't know who wants to kick it off. You have about 5 to 7 minutes to share your story, work that you do, and what you're talking about in terms of a fresh new start in DC. Who wants to start?
I'll start sisters first.
All right, so Salim.
You said the sisters first.
Oh, we don't have to do that. It's all good. She'll get her to you. It's all good. Salim Adolfo, take it away.
1, 2, 1, 2. May I have permission from the others to continue? Greetings, everyone. My name is Salim Adolfo. I got to get used to being called commissioner. Myself and this brother over here trying to hide out in the corner, Brother Kimon, who's doing a lot of recording, found ourselves doing a lot of work around social justice issues, and particularly killings of young black men and women in the streets by the police. But also doing some work around social justice issues, such as that we would do Kwanzaa events where we can send letters to political prisoners, raise funds, and visit political prisoners such as Marshal Eddie Conway. So I saw myself actively engaged in re-entry through that way. But then I thought about it not too long after that, and I said, wait a minute, I got a cousin that's locked up, I got other family members that's been incarcerated, what about them? And I would think about how do we help our own family members get reacquainted into society. And so that touched me very deeply because we do a lot of work for other folks, but sometimes we don't do it for our family. And then as I became a commissioner, I had to make some really tough decisions and do a lot of reading and studying to learn more about what this looks like from the legislative side and not just the activist side. And so currently we're engaged in the struggle around returning citizens here in DC from a standpoint of folks who may have committed crimes that are looked at as sexual in nature. And what I find myself doing is not being somebody that looks at it as, well, you committed this crime, so I don't want you coming back to the city, but as somebody who has to be fair and partial to everybody that's a returning citizen, no matter what crime they've committed. And to some extent, as someone who now sits in this position from the government perspective, I have to look at it from a standpoint of, who am I here to legislate for, right? Because some of these sisters and brothers will be citizens in this community again, and they're going to need a fair shot, Reverend Hagelin, no matter what they may have done. And so we got to make sure that they get the same equal access to jobs, to housing. We got to make sure that their family can embrace them as well. So I find myself sitting reading court documents, reading legislation, and seeing how I can be as fair and as partial as I can to somebody who's coming home, Brother Al-Malik Farrakhan, because they need love too. That sister and brother that might be in a halfway house needs to have his family or her family there to help them properly transition. And so I see my role as being somebody that can make sure that that sister or that brother gets the goods and services that they need. So that's where I see myself and my role at right now, is making sure that they can get adequate resources.
All right. Let's pass the mic. Who's next? Brother Al-Malik Farrakhan, OG.
Want the sister, and then I'll go after you, sister. Assalamu alaikum, peace and love, whole tap. My Christian brothers and sisters, I love y'all, man. My name is Al-Malik Farrakhan. I'm a brother that thinks outside of the box. I don't go along with the norm. I was given 5 to 20, 3 to 10 indeterminate life sentence for something that I didn't do. And those things that I did do, I didn't go to prison for. But it was what I didn't do that they sent me to prison. And the judge told me Oliver Gash, and from all the lawyers in here, it might be from the old time, told me that I'd never make another baby again. And they also told me I'd never be with a white woman. And I couldn't understand where it was coming from because I had never been with a white woman. But as far as making another baby, I told him, sir, I didn't do this, and I'm not going to do this time. So I wound up doing 5 years and I escaped. I went all across the country trying to prove my innocence and etc. But before I escaped, we had a warden in Lawton called Dan Strickland. We called him Dapper Dan. Right? He's a program man. He was about it. So was the director of the Department of Corrections. They was about it. And they believed my story. So they got a newspaper by the name, the Washington Star. Is it what the Star? Yeah. They got them to come down and interview me and etc. And they tried to get me back in front of the judge. The judge said I threatened the man that did the actual robbery, came down to Lawton, right? And when he found that I was doing this bid, he said, man, what is it that you want me to do? I said, man, I want to kill you. That's what I want to do. We had a riot, I had been stabbed, right? I mean, the whole shot, right? But he went and told the Dan Strickland, right, the warden, man, that man's locked up for my beef. So they tried to help me, but the judge said I threatened the man, made him do it. So I said, okay, I'm gone, right? I got the opportunity, I went all across the country. And while going across the country, different places, I used to be a gang leader. I wound up with different gangs. And Allah blessed me to have the opportunity to bring some of them gangs together. So when I got out in California, I was helping the blood. I didn't even know it. The police inside, the penal sisters beat him. They beat him on the second occasion. And that's the time that I went to his aid. But while I was paralyzed, they beat me on 10 different occasions until they paralyzed me from the head down, right? I know you're all surprised. I'm talking like that. I can just walk like this now. God is truly God, right? Believe what I'm telling you, right? So I started different programs. When I was out in California, I started a program, Entertainment Now, to help and find missing and abused kids. The entertainment part was to bring the gang members together, right? And the other part was to find abused kids across the country. Then I started a program called Help Beat, help to eliminate lawless police brutality against minority inmates, right? That was across there. When I went to New York, I started a program called Save the Elders. In other words, do run, but these were gang members, man, that I'm confirmed with, to help the elders and et cetera, in their neighborhood. And then when I came home, I'm paralyzed. I was in that wheelchair 16 and a half years. And I had Brother Anthony Muhammad, I wish he was here, right? It was Minister Farrakhan, one of his ministers that was working in the penal assassin. Man, when I come home, I want you to take me to every hot spot in this city where they banging at. And he picked me up the day that I was released, and he took me to every hot spot. Consequently, that started one of the greatest programs in this city. That's actually laid the blueprint for all this other in this town about stopping the killing and across the country, which was ceasefire. Don't smoke, the brothers and sisters. We hired brothers and sisters that came out of prison, and especially those that was doing life sentences, those that had murder beats, those that nobody would hire, give them a second chance. And we was paying them $25 an hour and $15 an hour. And that was at the time the murder rate was 400 and 500 in this city, that we would go and squash a lot of this beef. Now the murder rate was like 120, 160 quarters, or something like that, right? The most important thing about the whole thing is that I never complied with the rules and regulations that would keep us behind. And what I mean by that, they got these rules and they tell you don't do this, don't do that. I can't confer with another man or woman that was locked up. Because you know they can send you back to prison for that. I just refuse to abide by that, right? And if it don't be for the Honorable Marion Barry, the parole board might have sent me back there. All right, so I had some help. But the most beautiful thing about it, that the gang members called for a ceasefire, right? We took gang members, never been done before. Gang members, we walked all throughout the city, all parts of Washington, D.C., saying ceasefire. These brothers have never ever went back to beefing again.
So, Brother Malik, why don't you conclude with telling us around what time period that was and how long or what's happened since then that you're making your concluding?
That was when we first, yes ma'am, I know I can be a little long when it comes, right? That's why I want everybody else to go first. Right? But that was back in like 94, 95. We're the only group in this city that ever got 3 different proclamations from different mayors, right, about the work that what we do. And this is not barring none, because they got some great other groups in this town. But that was back in 1994 all the way up to now. I'm 72. I'm 72 now, right? And I feel like a young buck, man. And I say this to everybody in that audience. It ain't about your age, it's about your heart. Man, this is our people. We got to go save them, man. And Charlie, just sitting right here on this front.
Yes.
Man, we've been on this front line together at these different meetings. And this man here, watch what you say.
Chemo.
Right? Mr. Kamon Freeman. He did a thing called prison poetry. And he asked me to read the script. So I took it home, and I'm going to end it right here. I took it home, but I didn't read it right there. I just took it, put it on the side, right? About 3 weeks later, I pick it up. You know, I do my best in the bathroom with the reading and all that, studying in the bathroom, right? But that's what we did in prison, right? Right there on the toilet. So, you know, right? And I pick it up and I'm reading it. I hurry up and call this man. Where you get this stuff from, man? He said, that's your life, man.
Wow.
Everything you was telling me, I was recording because I didn't want others to record it. I wanted to record it just like you said. And that was called prison poetry, right? It was at Busboys and Port, and it took it to Howard. And I never got a chance to thank him publicly. And thank you, Sister, for that. Come on, I love you, right? Peace and love.
So give it up for our Lily Carter. My sister, okay, Paula Thompson. Paula Thompson, Voices for a Second Chance. And I didn't realize that was the visitors service center. Yeah, I didn't realize that was this.
No, we changed the name.
Because I remember that from way back.
Yeah, so Voices for a Second Chance better suits our mission and work. Thank you. Visitor Services Center was a former name, and Voices for a Second Chance, we changed our name about 4 years ago, and it better suits our mission. We've been around for 50 years, and we serve men and women in the DC jail system, as well as those of our residents are coming home from the BOP facilities from across the country. We serve over 4,000 residents a year, and it's growing. Our work is broken up, I would say, in 3 buckets. Our first responder services, which I call our first line of defense, when we usually come in contact with the men and women once they have been detained in DC jail. It can be anything from I need to pick up my property to can you call my family and let them know that I've been arrested so that people know where I am. Sometimes folks are arrested on their way to taking their children to school. And so a lot of times we are that first phone call. And we continue that process throughout the time that they are detained in DC jail and even when they move on to BOP. So we pick up property in that first phase, and then the next phase is the case management. And so we stay with you during your incarceration, and oftentimes once you've come home, we continue that process through our reentry services. We provide support groups for men and women who are coming home. We're seeing a lot of men coming home after serving 20 plus years, and they're returning home to a city that they don't recognize. And so they're dealing with the feeling of displacement. And so we have support groups as well as individual counseling to kind of help them. How do you get acclimated to a place that sometimes don't even want you back here? So we're trying to help them with that. And then we have our Family Connections program, which is we work with families and specifically children of incarcerated parents, and we provide a support group for them currently in DC Stanton Elementary School, DCPS School, which has the highest percentage of children of incarcerated parents. And these children are often dismissed. They have minimal services. And so we are bridging that gap. And our tagline intentionally is bridging the gap from incarceration into community. And it starts at the point of arrest. That's how we view reentry services. My other hat that I serve is as co-chair of the Reentry Action Network, which has been around for 2 years now. We represent 23 and growing direct service providers, reentry programs in the city, organizations. Courtney is also my colleague and comrade, I would say. He serves on the Leadership Council of the RAN, and he's the committee chair for community engagement. And The reason why the RAN was developed was because reentry services it's ignored in the city. It's not a priority for the administration, which dictates in the funding that they appropriate for services. And so it is a constant struggle for the organizations that we represent to serve the population. It is not a secret that we have over 3,000 residents coming back, and that number fluctuates because sometimes I hear 6,000 coming home to services that are not there. I don't know if people feel like you have to figure out how to get a job, how to get housing, but no one deals with the fact that men and women are broken when they come home. They have been traumatized, oftentimes during their imprisonment, and it goes unchecked, it goes untreated, and so we have to deal with the social and emotional damage that's done. The services that are in the district, I would say the community-based organizations are the ones who pick up that slack, who do the bulk of the work to move the needle. Right now, we are advocating for additional funding in the budget for FY20 and the mayor's budget, because there has only been $300,000 allocated in the mayor's budget for reentry services. That is a disgrace. As opposed to the victim services side, which gets 10 times that amount of money. And so I think there is a disconnect in the fact of how we view these two populations. Our population of returning citizens most times have been victimized in some capacity in their lives. It's intergenerational, from the poverty, from the illiteracy, the crime, and the environments that they grow up in. And so they tend to, sometimes what we find is in survival mechanisms is that they do, but they have to exist in these communities and create a space to take care of their families and themselves. And so oftentimes they are locked up because there are lack of resources. And a lot of the clients come from Ward 7 and 8. Although we serve everyone across the city, they are most of the time segregated in those areas. And so what we find is that there are a lack of resources being allocated to help the men and women who are already in the city trying to make a way, and those who are coming home. And so when we talk about housing and get a job, let's not fake like there's no other way to say it, that there is housing. There is no transitional housing. There is no affordable housing. And those of our clients who are working, they are working poor and working to return home to a dangerous and crime-infested shelter. And so when we talk about a fresh start, we need to just start.
Right. Let's go to Courtney. Thank you. We need a start. Courtney Stewart, the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens.
Thank you, and Keith, yeah. Very good, I appreciate that. Yeah, my name is Courtney Stewart. I'm the chairman of the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens. And I actually, for me, it's just real simple, okay? So, the National Reentry Network, we got started in 2010. It was a volunteer organization. I actually, it's nothing special about the organization. I mean, we wanted to get together. We wanted returning citizens to get together as a returning citizen RAN organization, and we wanted to get involved in voting rights at that time. And we also wanted to be more transparent and more visible in the community. And we've been able to do that through the last 9 years, and we've had very little accomplishments along the way. And I say that because, we still undervalued, underappreciated. You know what I mean? No, we ain't nothing special for us to be talking about. So I got to get straight to the action part, because I don't have a lot of time to be talking, because I'm still, I feel like, I've been home 30 years. I done raised a family and everything, and I still feel like I'm in prison. You know what I mean? Really, out here in this community, especially when I hear these narratives and when I hear this language that we speak against each other, trying to call ourselves still judging people who have paid their debt to society. The community is not the criminal justice system. But we always trying to act like we are the criminal justice system. You know, get close to a person and find out what is going on with them. What did they go through? What did they have to deal with? Learn, get educated about the criminal justice system. We ready to, we talking about DC residents. We talking about neighbors. We talking about family members. We talking about sons, daughters, mothers, fathers, people that built the city. What is we talking about? We talking about people that gave their blood, sweat, and tears for this city. You understand? And then when they come back to our communities, we sitting up here acting like we need to rejudge them. You know, whether or not they should be here, whether or not they deserve this, that. What are we talking about? I mean, no, they do. They was here before you were here. You know what I mean? They are third and fourth generation Washingtonians. You know, but we sitting up still trying to play this game, this Russian roulette with people's lives based on this banner of public safety, which is fake anyway. You know what I mean? If you gave everybody, see, we all really need to get some truth serum, man. What happened to the truth serum? Because we need it. That's what we need. We need some truth serum because we really need to get down to, you know, Carlisle Holder. I really appreciate this brother, you know, and I'm gonna endorse his book. We're gonna buy 10 books. We're gonna get the National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens. I'm going to purchase 10 books because I believe every returning citizen should read this book. I've read it. It's dynamite. It's a dynamite book, you know, because it's outside of the box. It's not the normal bull crap that we keep feeding to each other. You know what I mean? It's us, you know, looking at our solution for us to do this thing on our own, man. So let me say just a couple of things because I don't want to. I respect Nkechi. I really have a tremendous amount of respect for Nkechi. I've never had I've always admired her, you know, and so I've been close. I've always stayed close to her work and what she has done in the city, you know, and I'm glad she has her own thing too. Very happy that she has her own thing, man. But I want to say this because, you know, we were a volunteer organization.